Deep in the rural mountains of Japan, where mist never fully lifts and old cedar forests swallow roads whole, there are scattered shrines that do not appear on official maps. Locals refer to them in uneasy fragments of speech as Yūrei shrines, places tied to restless spirits, or Yūrei, the dead who could not complete their passage into the afterlife. Unlike the well-maintained Shinto shrines seen in cities, these rural sites are half-forgotten, often collapsed into the earth or hidden behind overgrown paths that seem to reappear only under certain weather conditions. Some elders insist these shrines were never meant for worship in the traditional sense, but rather as containment points, places built to anchor spirits that became too violent, too sorrowful, or too attached to the living world. One of the most repeated accounts comes from a small village in the Tohoku region, where an abandoned shrine sits at the edge of a rice field that no longer produces crops. According to oral records, the shrine was originally built in the late Edo period after a series of unexplained deaths affected a traveling merchant family. Each night, villagers reported seeing a woman in white wandering between homes, silently standing at doorways without entering. When priests arrived, they discovered that the woman had no known grave in the village, yet her presence grew stronger whenever proper funeral rites were performed elsewhere. The shrine was constructed quickly, not as a blessing, but as a boundary, an attempt to give the spirit a fixed place to exist so she would stop wandering. However, what makes these shrines infamous is not their construction, but what happens when they are abandoned. Over time, as villages emptied during Japan's post-war rural decline, many of these shrines were left unattended. The torii gates collapsed, offerings decayed, and prayer plaques turned blank from weather and mold. Yet villagers from nearby towns began reporting that the shrines were not truly deserted. Fishermen claimed to hear the ringing of bells deep inland on windless nights, while hikers described seeing faint silhouettes standing inside broken shrine halls, even when the structures had no roof or walls left standing. In one particularly chilling account preserved by a local historian, a forestry worker assigned to clear land near an abandoned mountain shrine described an experience that ended his career. He reported that as soon as he crossed the old stone steps leading into the shrine grounds, his equipment began malfunctioning, batteries draining instantly despite being newly charged. The forest around him grew unnaturally quiet, no birds, no insects, no wind. At the center of the shrine, he found a small wooden offering box still intact, as if someone had been maintaining it daily. Inside were dozens of folded paper slips, all containing the same single word written in ink that appeared fresh, still. That night, according to his testimony, he returned to his lodging but found his boots filled with damp shrine soil, despite never removing them outdoors. More disturbing was the sound he heard while trying to sleep, the faint rhythm of a shrine bell, slowly repeating from inside his own room. He left the village the next morning and never returned, but locals later claimed the shrine he visited was no longer visible from the trail it once stood beside. Another recurring pattern in rural Yūrei shrine folklore involves the phenomenon of reappearing paths. Hunters and travelers describe walking into forests where familiar trails suddenly shift, revealing stone steps or torii gates that were not present before. In some cases, these paths only appear after sunset or during heavy fog. Those who follow them report encountering shrines that feel actively maintained despite being officially abandoned for decades. Incense is sometimes still warm, water basins remain filled, and offerings appear freshly placed even though no human activity exists nearby. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of these stories is the belief that Yūrei shrines are not merely places where spirits linger, but places where they are aware of visitors. Multiple accounts describe a sensation of being observed from within the shrine itself, even when no visible presence is there. People report that their thoughts begin to feel echoed, as if the shrine is responding internally rather than externally. Some say they hear their own names whispered from the direction of the offering hall, even when standing alone. In modern times, these stories persist not as official religious doctrine, but as cultural warnings passed between rural communities. Older residents advise against entering overgrown shrine paths, especially those without maintenance signs or those located deeper than expected within forests. While skeptics attribute these experiences to isolation, fatigue, or environmental illusions, the consistency of the accounts across different regions remains difficult to dismiss entirely. Whether the Yūrei shrines are remnants of forgotten funerary practices, psychological echoes of isolation, or something more incomprehensible, one belief remains constant among those who live near them: these places are not empty. They are occupied. And in the quietest parts of rural Japan, where even time seems to slow down, it is said that the dead do not always rest beneath the ground, they sometimes wait inside the shrines built to hold them, watching for the next person who decides to step inside.